offer is written by Swami Kriyananda entitled, Well Done, Lord.
In India there lived by the banks of a stream a hermit whose prayers chose applause for their theme. He gazed at the flowers and he smiled at the sun. Then he clapped with delight, Lord, he cried, oh, well done. Well done, Lord, oh, very well done. The mountains that laugh with majestic clouds, the fields smile to welcome the sun. All nature sings praises aloud. The fields smile to welcome the sun. All nature sings praises aloud. The trees dance to show their elation. A day on God's earth has begun, and every true heart in creation in speechless wonder is bound. And every true heart in creation in speechless wonder is bound. Well done, Lord, oh very well done. The joy that you planted in children's hearts, the thrill known in bearing a son, the hope when a trial departs. The thrill known in bearing a son, the hope when a trial departs. The gladness of men and their labors, of youth and its victories won. Our joys are the proof of your labors. How wonderful, Lord, are your arms. Our joys are the proof of your labors. How wonderful, Lord, are your arms. Well done, Lord, oh very well done. At last they discovered the mystic key, the world's joy, oh secretive one, replies to your sweetness in me. The world's joy, oh secretive one, replies to your sweetness in me. For here in my heart lies the answer, your love shedding light like the sun. All life seems to leap like a dancer, when gazing I see only thee. All life seems to leap like a dancer, when gazing I see only thee.
This reading is from the Rays of One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Today's topic: what is the best way to pray? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness within and your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Jesus Christ and Sri Krishna both advise praying to God as personal. Yet both emphasize also that God is above form and that he must be sought ultimately in infinity. As Jesus put it, God is the Spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Yet he spoke of God constantly as a Heavenly Father. In what is known as the Lord's Prayer, he proposed a very human prayer to the Heavenly Father, asking fulfillment for all our spiritual needs. The Bhagavad Gita explains that man, living as he does in a human body, find it difficult to worship infinity as though the ego and body didn't even exist. Far better for human beings could not such to work with reality as we know it than to affirm a reality of which the human mind is incapable of forming any clear notion. Encouraging the devotee in this direction, he says, "O Arjuna, be thou a yogi." That is to say, be one who works with, not in rejection of, the attitude of the body and the natural tendencies of the mind. In the 12th chapter of the Gita, Arjuna asked, "Those who ever steadfast worship thee as devotees," that is to say, in an I and thou relationship, "and those who contemplate thee as the immortal, unmanifested spirit, which group is the better fit in yoga?" The Blessed Lord replied, "Those who, fixing their minds on me, adore me, ever united to me through supreme devotion, are in my eyes the perfect knowers of yoga. Those whose strict aim is union with the unmanifested choose a more difficult way. I do it, for embodied beings is the path of dedication to the Absolute. The path, that is to say, of Ghana Yoga." I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Oh.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nayaswami Surendra. I'm here this morning with Nayaswami Bharati, and Tyagi Dambara is also going to help us a little bit later with the touch of light. It's very, very nice to be here with you. As many of you may know, I've been away for the past 5 weeks on a very wonderful and important road trip to me, an opportunity to reconnect with many dear old friends, some of whom I hadn't seen for decades. It was a very special time, and it's also very special to be back here with you this morning. Thank you, Stephen, for the reading on Rays of the One Light. The topic, what is the best way to pray, I think was pretty well answered in that reading. Pray from the heart. But our affirmation this morning on even-mindedness is perhaps a little bit trickier to accomplish, and so I'd like to focus on that this morning as my topic. I'll begin with a very short reading from Whispers from Eternity. This is number 133 on page 101. Demand for quickening activity. Let the waves of thy power dance on the river of my activity, as thou art intelligently busy making atoms, flowers, universes, so teach me to be cheerfully busy always. Thou art ever busy, yet eternally smiling in joyous hearts. Bless me that I may wear thy unfading smile as I work in the factory of life. I remember a conversation that I had about 12 years ago with Nayaswami Asha in Palo Alto. I had been managing East West Bookstore there in Mountain View for about 2 years at that point. And since 2001, the store had been in debt. largely because of the infamous .com bust of 2001, and then just a few months later, the 9/11 disaster. I was trying very hard to bring the balance sheet back into better balance, and I was nonetheless somewhat frustrated by the fact that the local economy was still struggling, and so was the store. And as you might imagine, my demeanor was very serious, as if that was going to make a positive difference. And Asha sat me down and began to lecture me on the importance of remaining even-minded and cheerful in all situations. Well, this was not my way of doing things. You know, I could feel my resistance rising as she spoke. I could see that she had a very good point and was probably right. But my emotional reaction, my ego's reaction, was not liking the idea. And it's because I was clearly looking for a little sympathy and validation from her, and of course she was giving me none of that. Well, I promised her that I would make the effort to apply her advice. And to my surprise, as I lightened up, so did the finances for the store. Not dramatically in any way, but steadily over the next few months and years. Even-mindedness, cheerfulness, what a concept, huh? But, you know, when life comes down hard on us, particularly if it's a loss of a loved one or the loss of a job or a serious injury or illness, it's our emotions that feel the effect in the first place. The brain receives this news, and like an expert bartender, it immediately mixes together a potent cocktail of various chemical ingredients such as fear and grief, anxiety, anger, and frustration. Becomes very difficult to be even-minded and cheerful under those circumstances. We're in a bit of a tipsy emotional state, and even-mindedness at that point has probably left the building. So the question is, how can we minimize, eliminate if possible, but at least minimize the adverse effect of disturbances on our composure, on our well-being? To start with, it's important to recognize that every disturbance, whether large or small, is not intrinsically bad. On the contrary, it's neutral, devoid of any negative charge in and of itself. As Master always said, Yogananda, that all circumstances are impartial, they're neutral. The only charge that they have is the charge that we ascribe to them based on whatever our predispositions may be, according to how we perceive what it is that has taken place. Secondly, we want to remember that all is coming from God. And if it's coming directly to you, it's because it has something to teach. It's an opportunity for personal growth. You simply have to see it, to allow it, and act upon it in that spirit, in the spirit of opportunity. The sooner we can accept a test with an even mind, without complaining or without wishing that things were different than they are, then the sooner also we can overcome and pass that test. Next, we have to put things in perspective. In the short term, much that comes to us may be very painful, but nowhere does it say that we have to suffer. Suffering is a choice. Deal with the pain as you need to, of course, but don't let suffering in the door. Look to the long term. Painful events come and go if we allow them to go. And finally, practice when it's easy. We know that as long as we're alive, we're going to have some very hard tests to contend with. It may sound harsh, but that's why we're here. The greater the karma, the greater the test, and nobody gets out of here with a free pass. So practice being ready before you get punched in the gut with one of those more difficult, heavy blows. Role play situations in your mind that are likely to occur someday. The loss of friends and family in particular. How does it feel? Are you able to accept and understand what that may be? Practicing before you have to makes it much easier to remain even-minded when such an event actually occurs. Swami Kriyananda was so good at this that there was nothing that could upset him, frighten him, worry him, in any way take him off his center. And many of his tests were monumental compared to what most of us face. He would always admonish us when looking at a potentially terrible situation to imagine the worst possible outcome. If it comes to pass, we have then already diffused it to some degree at least, and anything less or better than that is going to be even easier to absorb and to rise above. Swamiji was the epitome of holding an even mind and a cheerful disposition. But there's another outstanding example of these fine qualities. And I'd like to talk about him this morning also. Winnie the Pooh. If you remember the characters in A.A. Milne's classic series of books, there was Eeyore, who was always fretting about just about everything. Tigger, the tiger, had lots of energy, but he was often just out of control with that energy. Piglet was nervous, and he had difficulty when facing a decision. He often was not able to make it. Rabbit would calculate almost everything, always trying to figure things out. And Owl was proud of his wisdom. And the outcome of that was that he often wasn't very wise after all. Like each of us, these characters tended to stumble over their egoistic tendencies and flaws. But Pooh was the perfect model of effortless simplicity and calmness. No pretense, no need to prove his worth. He was able to go with the flow, with whatever came his way. If you're familiar with Taoism, which is the ultimate go-with-the-flow philosophy, that was Winnie the Pooh to a T. Now, it may seem odd to think of Pooh as a spiritual master, because he was just this dumpy little bear who would wander around making up songs, going through all kinds of adventures, and never losing his simple-minded simplicity, his happiness. That is just so important, because what could be more impeccable as a way to deal with whatever comes our way? It's a way of living in harmony with all that is. If you're familiar with the Tao Te Ching, the earth is a reflection of heaven. Now, we, human beings, are always trying to impose our laws upon the earth, but the earth does not obey our laws. It obeys the laws innate to its own divine nature. And the more we live in harmony with that higher natural law, the more joyful and unflappable we become. Struggle and suffering, they cannot exist unless and until we try to interfere with what is trying to happen. It's just like a martial artist. If you flow with the energy that is coming to you, instead of trying to resist it or to counter it with your own force, you're able to redirect that energy to a more positive outcome. And isn't that what our teachings are all about also? What these masters have brought to us as an important part of our teachings. The lesson, one of the lessons of the Tao, of our masters, of Swami Kriyananda and of Winnie the Pooh, is not to try so hard to do anything. Rather, seek to attune yourself to the nature of what comes your way and give yourself over to that guidance. In other words, be simple-minded, which is the opposite of being stupid. Whatever it is, don't try to outthink it. Think with it. As Piglet often said of Pooh, he hasn't much of a brain, but he never comes to any harm. Whatever he does, it somehow turns out right. I think there's a lesson in that for us too. But unlike little bears and so-called lesser creatures, we humans put way too much stock in our brainy capabilities. And as a result, we tend to specialize in the art of complication. It may appear intelligent, but very often complication and the way we approach it proves to be the opposite. how much do we need to know? If you know who you truly are, which is to say, if you live from your true inner nature, everything flows. And you're able to work with anything as it is, even-minded and cheerful no matter the situation. There's another principle in Taoism and in the way that Pu goes about his days that is also highly instructive and also entirely in attunement with our path of self-realization. In the Tao it is said, the Tao does not do, but nothing is not done. It sounds like a riddle, but what it means is that when we let things work in their own way, when we do not try to interfere with what is trying to happen, whatever needs to happen happens naturally without our egoic interference. Why do we meditate? It's in large part to cultivate an intuitive connection to God that enables us to see and trust this natural way of being. Where is the wisdom in relying on complexity, craftiness, or force to solve the problems that confront us? We talk about fighting fire with fire. The way to fight fire is with water. It's the more natural way. In the 45th chapter of the Tao Te Ching, it is written, to attain knowledge, add things every day. To attain wisdom, remove things every day. We need to rethink what it means to be smart. Let's accelerate the process of removing that which does not serve us. And let us put a little more Winnie the Pooh into our way of being. God bless you.
It's written by Swami Kriyananda from his oratorio Christ Lives. This is entitled Desert Solitude. If you could imagine Winnie the Pooh going on a 40-day seclusion, perhaps this.
Led by Surendra